Hooday, Bengal fans. He is Mon. He is Eric. I am Jake. This is the Bengals Pulse, the heartbeat of our Cincinnati Bengals. Hooday to everybody out there. This is our first show after the wrap up of the 2024 season. Little disheartening, little depressed. Not gonna lie, guys. Watching these teams practicing, getting ready for the playoffs this weekend. But we are where we are, and we do have a lot of Bengal news to talk about, guys. Some coaching changes. But before we get to all of that, Mon, how's your week been, buddy?
Good, very good. Just trying to get back into the work swing. Had some time off for the holidays, and just excited about coaching search and everything that's going on at the Bengals. There's no off season in Cincinnati for Bengal fans, at least. I wish we were still playing, but there's a lot of moves to be made over the next month, and I'm excited about them. Hopefully, they get the right guys picked.
Yeah, hopefully, hopefully you are right. Eric, how's your week been, bud?
It's been exciting. Yeah, it's the week starts off with trying to figure out who the Bengals are going to hire, but that kind of puts you down in the doldrums. But we got a lot of excitement going on at work. Our first launch ever of our New Glen rocket is going off this weekend,
Nice.
So it's very, very, very exciting. That and our we got about 550 youth flag football players kicking off on Saturday. So there's been a lot of coordination and last minute stuff going on this week. So it's been busy. Nice distraction from the depths of despair that it is not making the playoffs. So ready to talk some football, ready to talk some Bengals speculation.
Yeah, I hear you. Yes, Ryder, my son, he starts flag football here in the next week or so, and baseball. So we're going to be very busy in the Owens household. Yes. Before we do, guys, though, some quick Bengal news. Bengals did sign 11 players to the reserve future contracts. Real quick, cornerback Micah Abram, halfback Gary Brightwell, cornerback Nate Brooks, wide receiver Cole Burgess, to tackle Andrew Coker, defensive end Raymond Johnson III, safety P.J. Jules, safety Jalen Key, guard Tashawn Manning, wide receiver Kendrick Pryor, my guy, and linebacker Craig Young. Mon, any of those names jump out to you? Any guys you think have some potential there to be future Bengal players?
They always have potential. They're in the NFL. The Bengals thought enough of them to put them on the future or on the offseason roster. Cole Burgess, the wide receiver from the same school that Dan Pitcher was from, is intriguing. He's very athletic, but he played small college football, so he needs time to develop. He could potentially be a special team stud. I've always liked Raymond Johnson. I always liked the way he played. Manning, the guard that spent a lot of time with the Ravens, he doesn't fit the profile of a Bengal guard. He's like 340 pounds. That's something I think we need to transition into. Maybe he can develop, because we need those big maulers in there, because Kappa and Volson just didn't get it done this year. So, maybe those guys can continue to develop. NFL rosters are full of players that spent time on practice squads that turned out to be Pro Bowl Hall of Fame players. James Harrison was one of them. James Harrison was cut 3 or 4 times, and look at him. He kept on plugging away and he became a stud. So you never know.
Yeah, you never know. Some of those names are guys that we have watched in the preseason, and we'll wait and see. You never know with those guys. Ryan Raycow, guys, our punter, was named to PFF's rookie of the all rookie team. Raycow finished 9th in the NFL with a 42.9 net yards per punt. Not bad, right, Eric? Not bad for Ryan, making PFF's all rookie team. Not too bad.
Yeah, you can't beat it. I mean, we don't want to see a punt, anybody out there punting. We want to score every time, but it's a weapon when you have somebody that can boom it. I mean, he had some really, really big punts. He almost had like a 79-yarder that was almost down at the one. That's a weapon when you can pin him back there and let your defense pin their ears back. So love it.
It feels good, guys. That's the one need we don't have to worry about, right? Quarterback and punter. We are good at the quarterback and punter position. Speaking of quarterbacks, guys, Joe Burrow, once again, player of the month. So player of the month for basically November through January because they put December and January together. So he is the first Bengals player ever to go back to back for player of the month. Guys, the only other Bengal player to ever have 2 in 1 year, number 14, the Red Rifle, Andy Dalton. Yes. So Joe Burrow and Andy Dalton now the only two Bengals to have Player of the Month twice. But obviously, once again, guys, Joe Burrow, just absolutely outstanding season. It's going to be very interesting to see where he falls as far as the awards go. Comeback Player of the Year, possibly. Maybe MVP. I don't know about that, but we'll wait and see. But congratulations to Andy Dalton. Guys, on our last show, we obviously did not know about the coaching changes that were coming down the road. Although
we knew,
but we were also like, well, we wouldn't be surprised if nothing happens.
Yeah.
So a lot of coaching changes coming up here. Again, I do think before we get to that, and I want to just really quick talk to you about this, Mon, because once again, our thoughts and prayers go out to California. Horrible, horrible brush fires. Once again, they're talking about moving the Rams game now maybe to Arizona. A lot of, I think now that the death toll is between 5 and 10 or 15. Very scary stuff out there. You being a firefighter and a first respondent, real quick, your thoughts on these horrible fires out in California. And it's sad. It's a sad situation, isn't it, Mom?
Yeah, it is. Been definitely keeping up with it, following a lot of stuff. And unfortunately, people throw in things that, make it political and stupid. But when you can't fight a fire when there's 75, 80 mile per hour winds, it's basically, it's like pouring gasoline on fire. It's nasty. It's terrible. And I feel horrible for those people. And, when you have 300-400 homes burning, you're going to run out of water. It's just something of that magnitude is absolutely, it's just devastating. And I feel for them. And I pray the weather cools off or the wind dies down out there, because it's 60, 75 mile per hour winds in the middle of a multiple fires. That's not good. And it's a terrible situation. I wish them the best.
Yeah, thoughts and prayers again out to California and everyone out there. You guys be safe, and man, our thoughts are with you, and not just the residents of California, but obviously your guys, the firefighters and the first respondents out there who are risking their lives to help their communities and hopefully get this thing slowed down and ended soon. So thoughts and prayers to everybody out there. Let's talk about this coaching search, guys, because we did kind of touch on it again. Again, I hate being the guy who says he's right, but I do believe I said Lou, Pollock, and a couple of defensive assistants. So I don't know if maybe the Bengals, if I had Zach's ear, I know he watches the Bengals Pulse, so maybe he was watching a little bit of the Pulse there before he made those decisions. But Zach, you're welcome. Make sure you make the right moves there, buddy. Before we get to that, though, Eric, Lou Anarumo. Some Lou Anarumo news. Go ahead and let us know what's going on with Lou.
Yeah, we found out that Lou is scheduled to interview for the Colts open defensive coordinator job. So that's my question for you guys. I think we touched on this before, how sought after or how highly thought of Lou Anarumo is, to the point that even the Kelseys came out in were talking about on their podcast how they were shocked that he was actually let go. Maybe they haven't followed as much what our defense has done all year, and they've only looked at the vacuum where we shut down the Chiefs or shut down Travis Kelce. But what are your guys' thoughts? Does Lou get a job quickly, and maybe give us your thoughts on how he's seen throughout the league? Mon, why don't you go first?
I think he's very highly respected. I think he'll get a job, and he's going to get a job quickly. I think the knock on him in Cincinnati was all the high draft picks over the last 2 years. They just haven't developed philosophically. He doesn't like playing them. He feels more comfortable playing these veterans. I think that was really the number one reason he was let go here. When he has the players, he's one hell of a defensive coordinator. I don't know if anybody here watched Bengal Jim show 2 nights ago. TJ Hushmanzada was on there and was talking about multiple Bengal items. He's a big fan of Lou Anarumo. He did bring up a really good question. If you look at all the playoff teams right now that are playing defensively, there'd be one Bengal that would start on those teams, and that's Trey Hendrickson. Can you name another one? Maybe Mike Hilton. Can you name another Bengal defender that's currently starting, that was starting week 15, 16, 17, that would start on another playoff team? And the point he was trying to make is that, he didn't have a lot to play with. He really didn't. And I think what hurt him, though, was a lot of these young guys weren't developing. And I think the Bengals needed to move on. But Lou Anarumo, he didn't get stupid overnight. He was a hell of a football coach, and he still is. And I think he's going to wind up in Indianapolis, and I think he's going to be successful.
Yeah, I mean, I think Mon hit it on the head. I don't, I think the knock on Lou, well, I will say this. I know Logan Wilson wasn't currently on the roster. We kind of talked about this in our group text. I do feel like Logan Wilson would be a guy that probably would start on the majority of the NFL teams out there. But you're right. I mean, we didn't have him this year. But Mon's right. I mean, he's 100% on the head when it comes to this situation. And Lou, I think you have to look at the development of these defensive players and all these high round picks the Bengals have used on the defensive side of the ball. Again, we've talked about it numerous times. 9 out of the last 10 top 100 picks on defensive players, and those guys are just not getting developed, or maybe they're just not NFL caliber guys. I don't know, but whatever the case may be, somebody wrote this on Twitter. I don't know who it was, but somebody made a point of, if Lou's defense dropped 15 spots because of losing DJ Reader and Jesse Bates, then that's coaching, and that's pretty much right. I mean, this is a defense that, again, Jesse Bates and DJ Reader are great players, and you guys know how I feel about the two of those guys, but this defense was historically bad. And, I think it falls on Lou's shoulders, but I do think he's well respected, like Mon said, and I think he's going to get a job fairly quickly. I really do. I do believe that.
I just want to add, I think management has a lot to do with it too. They have to take ownership of some
100%, Mon.
They got to take it because, Lou had his faults. They had to make a move. It was just so bad. But, we talked about it on the show 30, 40 episodes about Jesse Bates leaving, and the replacements for Jesse Bates are, not even close to being his caliber.
Yes.
And you just can't, you can't expect your defense to improve that way. It's going to regress. But it is what it is. We got to move on, and I wish him the best. I thought he did a hell of a job here when he had the players.
And I think you look at it, Mon, too, like you were just saying, I think you look at this, again, we go back to these young players and, the Dax Hill situation, Miles Murphy not progressing. Again, I just think it's more of those younger guys. The DB situation is not very good, and that's his specialty. So I do want to say, too, I like what you said, Mon, about the front office, because we found out this week that your boy Duke Tobin turned down an interview. Again, I think it's kind of shameful, to be honest, that Duke Tobin almost seems like he's dodging the media right now when he should be out in front. He's the GM of this team. He should be out in front, right? I mean, telling everybody that he's somewhat accountable for picking these players and them not maybe being caliber players, Mon.
Yeah, Paul Dehner had mentioned that. I guess he sent out a request to have him to have a sit down with him, but the Bengals don't operate that way. He talks 2-3 times a year. He's going to talk at the owners' meeting before he'll talk at the Senior Bowl. He'll talk potentially at the Combine, and he'll talk at Mock Turtle Soup. And that's really it. That's just the way the Bengals operate. I don't agree with it. And I just think it's not fair to Zach Taylor. We've been critical of him, but Zach Taylor needs to talk about football things. He doesn't need to talk about contract negotiations. Because guess what? We got 3 big ones coming up: Chase, Higgins, and Hendrickson. It's not fair to him to have to talk about that. What he should say is send a query to Katie Blackburn, send an email to Duke Tobin. I don't have an answer for you. That's what he should say, and I hope he does say that. But we'll see. This front office is on alert. We talk about hot seats for Zach Taylor and all that. This front office is on alert because all these accolades, everything you're saying, player of the month, 2 months in a row, first team all pro for Trey Hendrickson on PFF, the Triple Crown for all this. The front office screwed up and they're on alert. They really are because the seat's hot for them.
So do you? I was going to actually just ask you guys that question. I mean, let's talk about the front office because the front office is really mostly family, and then Duke Tobin plus Troy Brown, his vice president or whatever they have him labeled as. Do you really feel that they're on the hot seat because most of them can't be fired? You're only looking at Duke Tobin and a handful of scouts that really could see any ramifications from another bad season. So do we think that this is the hot seat season for Duke? If he doesn't get it right, will they actually make a move?
I mean, I don't know, guys. This
he's like they do say he's like family. He's been around for so long, and his dad was there.
That's the problem, Eric. That's the problem with this organization that I love with every ounce of me is they are just so worried about hurting feelings, and sometimes that they put that in front of winning games, and you can't do that. You cannot do that and be successful at any level of sports. You just cannot. You can't put your feelings in front of the success of the entire team and organization. And Duke Tobin is like family, and that's the bad situation with all this is. Honestly, I don't see them moving on from Duke Tobin. You would think he'd already been in the hot seat, Mon, and I just don't see them doing it. What are your thoughts, Mon?
I doubt it. Like you said, you guys mentioned that he is like family, but if they did make a move, it's not going to be now. It's going to have to be after the draft because, all their free agents rankings and initial draft projections for players, it's already there. They can't make adjustments now. We talked about that last week and the week before. If they make a change, it's going to have to be after the draft. I think the changes they will make, I think they're going to add to their personnel department. I think they have to. I don't see how they can't. They got 6 people in their player personnel department. That has to go at least to 9, 12, and they're still going to be 10 below the league average. But I think they will expand there. But you're right. We can't fire Katie. We can't fire the owners. But where you can hurt them. And I'm not calling for this because I love the Bengals. But you lose money. People don't show up. People aren't buying shirts. People aren't doing things, and that affects them in the pocketbook. And they don't want to lose money. They don't want that. They're in the middle of negotiating a big stadium lease. They need to win. They want to win. So I think the ball's in their court. We'll see the next 60, 90 days how serious they are.
Yeah, and just looking forward to that. If they just tune into the Pulse, we're going to outline everything that they need to do to turn this around. So if they just listen to the Pulse, it's going to be there.
I'm in hockey mode right now. Okay.
You need to get into Bengals GM mode and stay in Bengals GM mode because Duke Tobin, the reason he's not doing interviews is because he's glued to watching the Pulse. You need to put all that stuff out there.
He's afraid of Jake. He's afraid of Jake. He's afraid of the coach. He's going to freaking throw him some heat. That's what he's afraid of.
Yeah, maybe. All right, so let's get to this coordinator search. I think we all were very excited to hear that it was going to happen. You know, when you hear that it's going to happen, you want it to happen right now. You want your guy to be out there, and it's, you know, we're 4 days into the search. It's not that big splashy hire that we want, or flashy hire that we wanted to go out there with. The news that we've gotten so far, the Bengals scheduled, and assuming they've completed, haven't heard any news on them, but they did interview Patrick Graham, the Raiders defensive coordinator, and DeMarcus Covington, the New England defensive coordinator. So let's get your guys' thoughts on those two candidates. Maybe we'll start with you, Mon. We saw how they performed this year. You got any more information on their candidacy and what you think of them?
No, I mean, they're both obviously a part of the Belichick tree there, because they both spent a lot of time in New England. Graham was with the Raiders, obviously. Their record isn't sexy, but their defense played pretty well, actually. And he's very well respected. He's been around the league. They both spent time, both of them, linebacker, defensive line coaches. It would be interesting if Graham got it, if he would hire Covington or vice versa. But they both interviewed. Covington's younger. I think he's 35 years old. He's a younger guy. Spent some time in the college ranks. But he does have quite a bit of experience coaching. It's going to be interesting to see. I keep on reading things about Graham. He seems very intriguing. He could be a legit candidate there. So could that be a Max Crosby situation? You know, he coached him up and maybe he wants out, and maybe that's something to monitor. Could you imagine a Crosby and a Hendrickson together on the same team? I know I'm just, wishful thinking there. It's not going to happen.
I wish
that would be amazing. But I'm sure they're going to interview a lot more. We're going to talk about more candidates in a minute, but those two, they spent a lot of time with Bill Belichick, and Bill knows defense, and Bill must have liked them because they stuck around for a while.
Yeah, I Patrick Graham, you said it, Mom. He's 45 years old. He's got quite a bit of experience, guys. He's been at DC for the last 6 years. 2019 with the Dolphins, 20 and 21 with the Giants, and then, like you said, Mon, 22 through the present with the Raiders. Guys, this year the Raiders defense 15th overall, 15th against the pass, 13th against the rush. Scoring defense 25th, but again, those can be skewed with as bad as the offense was, a lot of turnovers, field position, all that stuff. So that scoring defensive number could be very skewed. 21st in the red zone and 17th on third down. Most of those are a lot better than what we saw from Lou Anarumo this year with less talent, right? I mean, besides Max Crosby, that Raiders team is very, very thin when it comes to talent. And I like this Patrick Graham guy. The more I read about him, the more experience he has. He's got a ton of experience, guys. So I like Patrick Graham. I think he's a serious candidate. DeMarcus Covington, again, he's young, 35 years old, like Mon said. Was the Patriots D-line coach from 20 to 23, and obviously the DC this year. The Patriots ranked 22nd overall, 10th in passing, 23rd against the rush, 22nd against scoring, 25th in the red zone, and 26th on third down. Again, though, a Patriots team that was not very good. Held the Bengals to 10 points in week 1. So I don't know how far that goes, but we're going to talk about some other guys here in a minute. I like Patrick Graham. Not so sure about DeMarcus Covington because, as I'm going to talk about, guys, I really think we got to have an experienced guy. I don't want some guy that's been a DC for 1 year and to try to come in here and turn this thing around. I think we need a guy that's got some serious experience behind him, and Patrick Graham could be that guy. I don't know. I don't know what his connections are with the Bengals, but I like what I've read so far about him. So,
well, speaking of experienced coordinators, we did get a report out there that the Bengals don't seem to be interested in Robert Saleh or Dennis Allen, which comes as a shock because those are the big hot names out there. Robert Saleh, I think it might be a case of they're not interested in them because they don't think those coaches are interested in us, similar to the Orlando Brown Jr. I mentioned this in our group text earlier. We didn't think we ever had a shot in the world to get Orlando Brown Jr. Then he called us. So I'm still wondering, are we not interested because they think they wouldn't consider the job? What are you guys' thoughts on that report? Speculation that we're not even looking at those guys.
I think real quick, I just think I think it could be more of a situation where maybe the Bengals don't want a guy that's just going to come in for a year and then go get a head coaching job somewhere. I don't know. And again, those are just speculative, reports out there that the Bengals aren't interested in those guys. I find it very hard to believe that the Bengals are not interested in them. But I think if it would be something, maybe a situation where they don't want a one and done from one of those two guys. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't think Allen's going to get another shot as a head coach. He's been a head coach twice, and it hasn't worked out for him. That's somebody I thought would be a serious candidate, and I still think he might be because he was the first phone call by Zach Taylor in 2019 when he became the head coach here. He was the first person, and it didn't work out. But Allen has an extensive history with the Saints, obviously. He spent a lot of time under Sean Payton. His defenses were always top 10, very tough defensive units. I don't know if it's a money thing. I don't know if he burned bridges from that initial contact. Saleh is going to be reuniting if he doesn't get another head coaching job with the 49ers. I think that's the reason that report came out, because maybe they reached out to him and his representatives potentially said, hey, we're really focusing on a couple other teams. And so the Bengals didn't pursue it. I'm just speculating. I have no inside info on that. But Saleh to me would be a winner, that he'd give the Bengals that edge, that toughness, that physicality that they haven't had for years. But Allen, I don't know. We'll see. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they are talking to him and they're just being low key about it. But they showed a lot of interest at one time. I don't understand why they're not going to do it a few years later.
Well, and maybe it's the fact of the salary that comes along with it. Saleh for sure would command almost as much as Zach Taylor gets paid. Zach's like $4.5 million a year. My thought is that Dennis Allen might just next job he takes is his prove it job. He needs to come out there and really succeed to stay in this league and keep doing what he does. So my hope is that maybe he comes to them, or they are talking to them, and he's willing to take less to come out there and prove it. Go ahead, Jake. You have thoughts?
I was just going to say, I think, Saleh, obviously the Niners DC from 17 to 2020, like Mon said, the Niners are infatuated with him. Reports are he already interviewed for the Jaguars head coaching job. So maybe, and there's supposed to be another one that he has down the road. So maybe it's a situation where they are trying to just clear the muddy waters and see if he's got a real shot at another head coaching job. And then the 49ers, we've heard already, have offered him the DC job. So I don't know. If I'm Saleh, I don't know if I want to go back to the 49ers. I mean, why would you go back to a place where you left as the DC? I don't know. It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me, the whole Saleh thing. But Dennis Allen, I like Dennis Allen. I think there's a lot of experience there, guys. Saints, Broncos DC back in 2011, DC at the Saints from 15 to 21. Obviously, head coach of the Raiders from 12 to 14, and then head coach with the Saints from 22 to, until he got fired this year. But a lot of experience with Dennis Allen. And, I saw some people writing on here that they think Zach doesn't want to hire his replacement. And that could be the truth. I mean, that honestly could be the thought process. I can't imagine it being the truth, but
It's to me, that's never going to happen, because the only way that coach replaces Zach is if if he comes in and does well, we win a Super Bowl, or we're contending for a Super Bowl. We don't need a top 10 defense. We need a top 20 defense to contend for a Super Bowl. And if you're contending for a Super Bowl, Zach's not going anywhere. Come on.
No, I just want to say so. One of the podcasts, I've listened to so many since the season ended. I think it might have been Jay and Paul. Zach Taylor, this is his one reboot.
Yeah.
This is his one opportunity to get it right. Here's the kicker. His seat is hot next year. Zach Taylor is going to be on the hot seat starting game 1. Is he going to trust a guy that's never been a defensive coordinator, or somebody in the college ranks that's never been a defensive coordinator in the NFL? Or does he want somebody that's proven, that understands the dynamics, to call a game, set up a game plan, to call, set up defensive play calls for a game? Who's he going to feel comfortable with? I mean, Zach Taylor is coaching for, I'll say it, he's coaching for his life, because if he has another 0-3 start, things are going to get really ugly. He has to get it right. He has to get a defensive coordinator that can develop young guys, because let's face it, Cincinnati isn't going to go out and sign 10 free agent defensive players. They're not going to draft 6 defensive players that are going to start this year. The guys on the roster, majority of them are the ones that are going to have to make it work. Yeah, we're going to get 2-3 players from other teams, a high draft pick, but we're really going to have to take it to another level with existing players on the roster. Whoever comes in has to be able to have a different mindset, get these guys dialed in, and he has to develop them, because it's going to take really 2 years to get the talent level on that defensive side up there with the offensive side.
Agreed. And 619 Bengals fan, no, the Bengals have not hired any replacements yet. Just so you know, 619 Bengals fan, we are talking about Lou Anarumo tonight, and we're focused on the defense coordinator job. James Betcher, the linebacker coach, Marion Hobby, the D-line coach, were also fired. Those guys are not going to get replaced till the DC is hired. And then obviously Frank Pollock, the old line coach, was also fired. But no replacements yet for the 4 coaching spots. 619, just to throw that out there. Go ahead, Eric.
Yeah. Those defensive spots won't be filled really until we get a coordinator, and they typically let them choose who they want to put in that role. Any other names that jump out at you guys? We've seen Al Golden up here in the chat quite a bit. I don't know that the Bengals can afford that type of money that's being paid to him now. They're throwing that name out there. People throwing out Mike Zimmer. Mike Zimmer is still with the Cowboys currently. I don't see Mike Zimmer coming back. What, anybody else that jumps out to you guys, or you want to give thoughts on Al Golden, Mon?
You want yeah, Mon, let's go back and forth. Mon, you go first. Let's talk about Al Golden. He's coaching tonight in the Orange Bowl for Notre Dame.
Yeah, he's good. You mentioned his salary. He does make $2.25. I think the Bengals would pay that. Do they want to pay it, though? Al Golden was a head coach at Temple, head coach at Miami, did really well at both spots. He had some issues at Miami, the Hurricanes. They let him go. Very successful here in Cincinnati, rebuilt that linebacker core. Remember, our linebackers are easily the worst in the NFL. He came in, he made them very respectable. What he's done at Notre Dame is impressive. He really is. And, the longer this goes, I know it's been less than a week, but the longer it goes, without them, more interviews or more speculation or naming a defensive coordinator, the more it makes me think it might be somebody in the college ranks. There's another guy that has Bengal ties, Livingston at Colorado, that was a former Bengal coach. It could be Golden. It really could be. I would prefer somebody that's called. My number one choice is Allen. We already talked about him, but Al Golden could be the guy.
Yeah, Al Golden, again, you could say Al Golden is responsible for Logan Wilson and Jermaine Pratt's paydays, right? I mean, he was a linebacker coach here for those for 20 and 21. He is a little old in the tooth, 55 years old.
Hey, that's still young, right, Mon?
I wasn't going to say that, Eric. That's
You called him old in the tooth, and then you dropped his name. His age. Come on, get out of here.
He has been the DC at Notre Dame for a couple of years, and I think I think you could very easily say that Notre Dame's defense is playing better than anybody at the college level these last the last month of the season, and right now, my family are all big Penn State fans. We're definitely nervous about tonight because of that Notre Dame defense and the way they fly around. So Al Golden, I don't think is a bad candidate. I just don't know if he's the right fit. I don't know if I want to. I don't know if I want to bring somebody back, and that's kind of my thing with Robert Livingston. Mon, you kind of brought him up, the DC from Colorado, obviously the DB coach for the Bengals for 7 or 8 years. He was a DB coach from 16 to 23. But he was with the Bengals since 2012. So he is a guy who is, again, we talk about how this organization's run and how they love, their family guys. And Robert Livingston kind of fits that mold, but just not a lot of experience, Mon. And he's 39, which is not young, but not a lot of experience, Mon, with Robert Livingston.
Yeah, I mean, is Zach going to take his chances with that? With the unknown, but he's well thought of. I think he was a Marvin Lewis hire initially.
He was.
This is not throwing shade or a knock on Lou. I mean, I think Lou's a great coach, but are these guys an extension of Lou? I mean, keep Lou then. Or is he going to have a lot of the same philosophies that Lou had? Let's not play the young guys. I don't know. I keep on hearing there's other names where I know we're going to talk about more people. There's a defensive coordinator at Oregon that I'm hearing a lot about. He's a younger guy. If they want to go the college route, somebody fresh ideas. He spent time with the Browns. So he knows the AFC North. I don't know, man. It's going to be interesting. I mean, are we going to talk about more guys, or are we just going?
Yeah.
Eric,
yeah.
Okay. Matt Eberflus, Mayor, the head coach of the Bears. What he did with the Colts. Remember a couple of years ago, the Colts, they started getting really solid players, making trades with the 49ers. They got the defensive lineman Buckner from them. Yeah. But before that, he had a solid defense with no names. So Eberflus is a great defensive mind. Maybe they're considering him. Zimmer, I know you mentioned him earlier, but he made $4 million last year with the Cowboys, and they were a train wreck.
Yeah.
There's Aubrey Pleasant. There's a lot of guys that he coached with, Zach Taylor, with the Rams. I remember he interviewed Aubrey Pleasant for defensive coordinator years ago. It didn't work out. So he's another name I'm hearing. But there's a lot of options out there. Guys, is he going to go to the young guy from college? It doesn't have a history, or is he going to go with somebody that's been a defensive coordinator for years? That's the big question right now. Well, he's coaching for his life. I think he's going to go with the known, performer at that level.
Yeah. Matt Eberflus, just a little bit more on Matt Eberflus. He is very young in the tooth at 54 years of age, Mon. No, Matt Eberflus, you're right. He is a guy, that Colts defense for those 3 or 4 years, they were really good. I mean, obviously good enough where it got him a head coaching job in Chicago. And, I have a good friend who's a diehard Bears fan, and he told me even when he got fired this year, the Bears defense has just not been the same. The Bears defense this year was actually really good when Eberflus was the head coach. Their offense was just atrocious, but they were only giving up 16 points a game or something like that. So Eberflus, I think, brings a lot of good experience. He's a guy that I really like as well. I'm going to throw out a name. And it's a name. It's not a new one. It's been thrown out there in Bingledom. But Tosh Lupow, who is the Oregon defensive coordinator. And he's 43 years old. He was DC at Alabama as well. He is one of those college guys right now that's getting his name thrown around. Not a lot of experience, but D-line coach for the Browns, D-line coach for the Falcons, D-line coach for the Jaguars. What is probably the worst part of our defense? The defensive line. Maybe not a bad idea bringing in Tosh and seeing if he can fix this defensive line issue as the DC. I don't know. He's just a name I've heard. I've now read up on him, obviously, because he's one of those names. And if we are going to bring in a young guy, I like this guy just because of the NFL experience, the defensive line. He was a good defensive line coach in the NFL, and he's been a DC, not at the NFL level, but Tosh, I think I'm saying it right, Lapau or Lapoy. He is a guy that I think could be out there. And another name, yes, thank you, Jonathan, was my next name was Steve Wilks. Steve Wilks is a guy who we have heard a little bit about, Mon. I know he's a guy you like a lot. What do you think about maybe Steve Wilks being the Bengals defensive coordinator?
Yeah, Tosh, the defensive coordinator from Oregon, mentioned him earlier. Rapine was really talking about him a lot today. A name to watch, could be from the college ranks. I like Wilks. Wilks fits the mold that I'm thinking of, a proven defensive coordinator. He was there. He was in San Francisco for a year, and they went to the Super Bowl and lost, and they replaced him. And his defense really struggled early on. Remember, the Bengals went out there and scored 34 on him and beat him, but he got those guys together, and they made it all the way to the Super Bowl. Everywhere Wilks has gone, the defenses have played well, and he's been a head coach before, so that would help out with game planning if needed. But I think I would love to see it. I want a veteran defensive coordinator. That's what I'm looking for. One thing I want to say, I just want to jump back about something. Zach Taylor, listened to another podcast from a reputable beat writer. They said that Zach Taylor is hands off on the defense. Basically, it's almost like two head coaches. The defensive coordinator does everything, all this, and Zach Taylor is a figurehead, but he allows that defensive coordinator full control. I don't want that. If your defense is struggling mightily, you need to be alpha and assertive and go in there and say, hey, we need to do something. Something's not right here. And hearing, I think it was Paul Daner that said that, and Mo Egger on their show, I was stunned to hear that, because the head coach oversees the whole team. If there's an aspect of your team struggling, you need to go over there and find out why. Yeah. But they made it sound like, hey, it's all on him. I don't know.
What do you guys, another young name, and again, it's a well-known one, but again, not a lot of experience, but Jim Leonhard, who is right now the Broncos DB coach. Again, he played for Wisconsin. When he was coming out of college, he had a really good story. He was a tough-nosed kid, kind of flew around the football, ended up playing the NFL, I think, for 6 or 7 years. But he was Wisconsin's defensive coordinator for 5 years. Then he took over as the interim head coach that 22 year. But he is also a name, Jim Leonhard, the Broncos DB coach, that has been thrown around as one of the young candidates out there that people are interested. Would he be a guy? What do you think about Jim Leonhard? Would he be somebody that you think the Bengals might be interested in?
I loved him as a player, as tough as can be.
Yeah, he was, right?
Yeah, I would like it. Honestly, I think the Denver Broncos are probably one of the toughest defenses we played all year.
Agreed.
And he had a big part to do with that. They are a good team, well coached. I tell you what, Sean Payton is one hell of a football coach. He knows how to put together a coaching staff. They are good. They might upset the Bills this week, but that's another topic. But I think Jim Leonhard would be a great get. And there's other names out there also. Like, I pulled up an article from Paul Daner. Everybody loves Vic Fangio. Everybody considers him to be the best defensive coordinator in football. Well, there's a guy from the Eagles, Christian Parker. He's a young
Yes.
guy. He's only 32 years old,
I've heard of him.
secondary coach,
The
but
DB coach.
he's been well versed in that system. Hey, if you want to take a shot on a young guy, get a guy that spent a lot of time with one of the best in the league. You know, if you want to do that, roll with him. But Jim Leonard would be a great get. There's going to be a lot of options. I'm going to go back to what Rex Ryan said. This is a destination job if you want to be a defensive coordinator. Yeah, the talent may not be there, but all you got to do is get this defense to about 19-20, and you're going to make a deep playoff run. You know, so we'll see. I think that there's a lot of things going on behind the scenes that no fans know about. There might be a name that, you know, we've discussed 5 or 6. There's probably a name out there we don't even know. So we'll see. We'll see how it shakes out. We'll find out soon enough.
Well, yeah, it's definitely it definitely could be a career maker, or it could be a career maker or career breaker decision for Zach Taylor. And I just wanted to add something. You know, I came to the realization today, and I've been thinking about this quite a bit, but we give Zach a lot of criticism for the way he coaches the team and the empowerment that he did give to Lou. But I came to the self-realization that Zach Taylor and I share a lot of the same personal traits. You know, we're very raw guys. Zach Taylor is really very close to who I would be as a coach. I do get a little bit more hands-on when I was coaching flag and whatnot. And I think I do a little better job situational play calling. But if this is me, you know, from this sense of self-awareness here, sense of self-awareness, and I'm going out there and this is a hot seat year, I'm not worried about losing my job to the guy that I bring in. I'm worried, you know, about losing my job. And if I bring someone in that's going to come in and just take this defense to another level, I'm winning next year's Super Bowl, and I'm winning the Super Bowl after that, and nobody's firing me. And I think that that's what a lot of people, you know, get caught up in. Zach Taylor picking this person based on not losing his job. I think he knows that no matter what happens, if he doesn't start at least 2-2 next year, he's going to be on the hot seat. So I think all the cards are on the table, and I think it will be an experienced coordinator that's been out there in the league before, maybe someone we haven't even talked about. But I don't think it's going to be a young up-and-coming mind. And if it is, it's the biggest swing for the fences ever, because if he goes and grabs somebody that's in college, you know, a 38-year-old coach that's in college that nobody's heard of, and that guy falls on his face, they're both gone at week 4. Go ahead, Mark.
I honestly, I've heard that a lot. I don't think he's worried about somebody looking over his shoulder and taking his spot. I really don't. I think he wants to win, and I think he knows to keep himself, you know, employed. He's going to have to get this in the offensive line position fixed or correct. And I think he's going to look at the best possible candidate. You know, the more I think about it, I think when Al Golden left, we mentioned him earlier, they talked him up. They were really, you know, seemed a little bummed out. They were happy for him, but at the same time, they knew they were losing a good coach. If they lose tonight, I could see Al Golden being the defensive coordinator in 2 days. So
you could be right, Mom, because you're right. They were. I mean, we knew at that point they weren't going to replace Lou with him. But you are 100% right. When he left, they were bummed. That was a really good coaching staff in 21. I mean, you look at that team as a whole, they did a really good job with the talent that they had. Obviously, Burrow and Chase and Hendrickson and some of those other guys are crazy. But that was a good coaching staff. And I think that you're right. I think Al Golden, they're definitely watching the Orange Bowl tonight to see maybe what would happen. I think he at least gets a interview. Another name, Mana, I threw out there last show. I still like Gerard Mayo. I really do. I know he hasn't been a defensive coordinator yet. You remember he was the Patriots inside linebacker coach. And there goes my light. He was the inside linebackers coach for the Patriots for 4 or 5 years, and then just got the head job. But he is a defensive-minded guy, And again, if you want to go with a guy that maybe is younger, I mean, I think he's like how old is he? Maybe in his late 30s, I think. So he's still a young guy. I think Gerard Mayo could be an interesting one. And then on the opposite end of that, you got Mike Zimmer, who is a young 68 years old.
Well, he is a young 68 years old. Congratulations to Mike Zimmer. He just got engaged to a model. I think she's like 45, 44, around my age. So congratulations to Mike Zimmer. You know, him and his family have gone through a lot since he was with the Bengals. So he's definitely in touch with youth of the world. So.
That was going to be my point. Mayo, actually, I was right. Mayo, 38 years old. And then Zimmer, 30 years older. But Zimmer with a 45-year-old wife, I mean, this guy's he's ready to go out there and still coach some defense, Mon. I just don't know, like you said, if they'll be able to afford Mike Zimmer. But your thoughts on Mayo and Zimmer? I mean, you know, do you think those guys might have any kind of a shot at this thing?
Zimmer is going to go down as one of my all-time favorite Bengal coaches. I really like him. But, guys, his defense was terrible. That Dallas defense was absolutely atrocious. And I know they had injuries and everything. I don't know. I don't know about that. You know, Mayo, yes, you know, one and done in New England. He's another Belichick disciple. We'll see.
That was a good one. That was a good one. I'm not so sure. Who is a bigger player? Is it Mon or Mike Zimmer? Who knows?
I just saw it. Cornell. I like you, Cornell. I like you.
Are you holding a knife, Mon?
I didn't mean it that way. I got a pocket knife out. That doesn't look good, does it?
Maybe that should be the topic of one of our next shows. Bigger player, Mike Zimmer or Mon Abelhassan. I think you could even throw in what's the actor's name? What's his name? Dennis. What's his name? He was in the baseball movie where he was the pitcher. The True Story. His brother Dennis Quaid. Right? Is that his name? Dennis Quaid?
Yeah.
Dennis Quaid. I think he just married like some girl. She's like 30 years old. She's like 50 years younger than him. So bigger player, Mon Abelhassan, Mike Zimmer, or Dennis Quaid. I don't know. My money's on Mon. Mon is a player for sure, Cornell.
I don't think so. I think Mon loses that, and Heather's a big fan of her show, so Mon is not out there playing. Hey, before we're let's move on here before Mon gets pulled off of camera and thrown out in the garden. We got 53 minutes in here. This is a really hard one to go out and research, and we've heard no interviews, but you guys, outside of Willie Anderson, have you guys heard any speculation or thoughts on who the Bengals could bring in for O-line coach, or who you want to bring in?
I have not. Oh, no.
Mon, you're muted.
Are you kidding me, Mon? Where was that all year? Now you get the cake. The season's over. You're muted.
You're muted. Mon, you're muted.
You're muted. We can't hear you.
Mon's a player. That's what's going on.
Oh, he got a cake. All right, talk about the O-line coach. Who
Listen. I don't know. I am very serious about this when I say I would absolutely love Willie Anderson as the Bengals O-line coach. I think, listen, he has coached the O-line since he's retired. He just hasn't done it for a team. But to me, Willie Anderson would be a home run. I know he liked Jackson Carman. I know that. But I love the fact that Willie Anderson would be the Bengals O-line coach, but it is not going to happen. I have not heard anything. I really think the Bengals are focusing right now on the defensive coordinator job and kind of going to work their way from there. Mon, have you heard anything different? Have you heard anything about the O-line job?
The only guy I've heard of, some names thrown out, the Dennis Allen, of course, was the head coach with the Saints. He moved on. They had an interim coach, but their offensive line coach there, I think his name was Benton, very highly respected. Spent a lot of time with the Jets, I think the Texans, and I want to say maybe Denver. He's been around, very respected. That's a potential name that I've heard. That's just all speculation. So I don't know. Of course, there's been no, Ian Rappaport's or anybody talking about offensive line candidates or Bengals have interviewed. We've only heard about the 2 defensive coordinators. That's going to be a huge, huge hire, big time hire. It's going to be big because, guys, Zach Taylor has to do some juggling here because he has a roster already of 60, 70 guys if you count the futures contract. It's not like he can replace half of them. Yeah. He has to get a coach that's going to be able to work with the clay that he has. Yeah. So it's going to be interesting. Defensive coordinator, 3-4 versus 4-3. What are they going to do?
You could absolutely argue that he doesn't have to get both of these hires correct. If he nails one of these hires, we're playoff bound again. Because if you fix that O-line, Joe Burrow is going to score 40 points a game. If you fix the defense, Joe only has to score 25 points a game. If you get them both right, it's Super Bowl bound. But if you get one of them right, we're good.
Oh, I think so. Mick, by the way, yes, we just talked about Gerard Mayo as a DC candidate. And Mark says Anthony Munoz, you have his picture on your wall. You have his jersey on your wall back there. I just don't know if Willie and Anthony would be guys the Bengals would seriously look at. But I think right now there are so many defensive coordinator jobs open that the Bengals have got to hit that one first if they want to get their guy. And I think that's probably where the focus is. But it's going to be interesting to see what the Bengals, what direction the Bengals go in. Like you said, Mon, how is their personnel set up? I mean, right now, are they a 4-3 team? I don't know. I don't know if they are. I mean, they linebacker wise, they're not very athletic guys. I mean, Logan, I guess, and Akeem Davis-Gaither kind of are, but Jermaine Pratt's like a true Mike linebacker. I don't know. I mean, if you do go to an odd front, you're definitely going to have to kind of blow up the roster a little bit and go out and get a 2-gap player, a nose guard, 2-gap player that's 350 pounds, which the Bengals don't really have on their team. Going to be interesting to see, though.
No, they don't. And you guys, I'm so sick and tired about the offensive line thing. Our offense was so good this year. I mean, it just shows you how talented our skill players are. But, guys, you have to – I'm not trying to be negative here. The shots that Joe took, they're just not sustainable. And we can't – we've got to cut down on those numbers. And that's with better talent, better play calling. And we just need to cut down those numbers.
Well, you guys saw – listen, we have 2 Triple Crown winners on this team, right? Jamar Chase for receiving and our boy Alex Kappa that we talked a lot about in our group text chain with Zim and Ace. Alex Kappa, this is for all the guards in the NFL. First for sacks allowed, first for pressures allowed, first for hurries allowed. So Alex Kappa winning the, what did you call it, Eric? The triple frown?
I can't take credit for it. Someone on Twitter called it the triple frown, and that could not be more appropriate.
God. I mean, Jesus, God. We have got to. Yeah. Eric, I'm going to disagree with you a little bit because I think you got to hit on both of those jobs, right? I think you got to hit on, is he really eating cake in front of us? That is messed up. That's dirty.
He is a player because Heather heard all that conversation and still brought him ice cream cake.
I hope that ice cream cake gets caught up in that stash, and the ice cream kind of what is it? Rottens a little bit, and tomorrow morning you wake up.
You don't
and
think he doesn't
like
coach?
Jerry?
You don't think he combs that and conditions that every night? Come on, Jay.
Let me tell you guys something. I'm Wagyu sirloin. I'm like prime beef. Okay, I'm like top of the line. Okay, I'm like filet mignon, Wagyu. You guys are chopped sirloin. Okay,
just sirloin, just regular,
whatever.
Wagyu beef, like Wagyu beef. The cows don't move. They don't let them develop too much muscle. They sit and don't move so that they get more marbling or fat. So you're saying that you're extra marbled?
You guys are dairy cattle. Okay, I'm genuine real over here, right?
Okay, got milk.
You're the bull.
Hey,
right?
Before
You're the bull. You're the bull.
I just want to say something, Mark.
Something.
This has gone off
Mark,
the rails.
Jim McNally is almost 90 years old. He can't be our offensive line coach.
No, but he is the best offensive line coach we have ever had.
True.
Yes.
This is so good. This is so good.
Come on, be professional here, man.
Such a jerk.
Before we get out of here, you got 200 people in the chat. We've hit our hour, but there's a lot of big playoff games this weekend. Do you guys want to throw some predictions out there for Wild Card Weekend? We did get official news that the Rams-Vikings game was moved to Arizona on Monday night, so that's a neutral site due to the wildfires. So you guys want to give some predictions? What do you got for us?
I'm going to give a hot take since Mon's got a mouthful of ice cream cake. I'm going to give a hot take real quick. The Steelers are going to beat the Baltimore Ravens, Eric. The Pittsburgh Steelers are going to beat the Baltimore Ravens this weekend on Saturday. Pittsburgh Steelers going to win. Mon?
Hot take now. I really think Lamar and the Ravens are going to choke. I think Pittsburgh is going to come in and upset them. They're going to get their first playoff win in a long time.
I agree. And thank you, gatekeepers. Listen, if the Bengals call me up to be the DC, I will at least answer. I will at least answer the phone, I promise you. As long as they promise me that they are going to re-sign Trey Hendrickson, I will answer that phone call, gatekeepers. Yes, I like the Pittsburgh Steelers. Listen, I think the road teams are all going to win in the AFC this weekend. I like the Broncos, I like the Chargers, and I like the Pittsburgh Steelers. Every road team in the AFC, this is another hot take, baby, with a flame on it. Every road team in the AFC will win this weekend. Chargers, Steelers, and who's the other one?
Broncos
all win this weekend.
I think you're just trying to set up your Broncos going in and revenge game against the Chiefs, right? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Who do you got in the Jake Matthew Staffords versus his old nemesis, the Minnesota Vikings?
I like the Rams. I'm gonna tell you right now. I know
you love Matthew Stafford. Just say it.
Listen. When it comes to the playoffs, you do have to look at quarterbacks and that part of it. And if you're telling me, who am I going to take, Matt Stafford or Sam Darnold? I'm taking Matt Stafford 10 out of 10 times. This Rams team is a lot better than what you guys think, and the Vikings look like crap, to be nice. In a play-in for the division game, for the 1 seed, the Vikings look terrible against a beat-up Lions team that has 15 guys on IR. Give me the Rams. I'm taking the Rams over the Vikings. I like it.
What do you got?
Rams. I agree. I think the Rams are going to win.
I'm taking the Vikings because I didn't pick them when I was 5. I will pick them now. The Vikings are going to win that game. Jay Jetta is going to go off. Vikings, what is it? Skull. They're going to go for it. What about your boy Baker Mayfield facing against the Commanders?
Baker's my guy. Baker's my guy. I'm rolling with him. Listen, we got our championship ring. Go for it, Baker. I'm here for it. I am rooting Baker on. I like Tampa over Washington. I think Baker right now is probably the most underrated player in the NFL. That dude has gotten no love, and he is having an incredible quarterback season. I mean, of course, Joe Burrow and Lamar and some of those guys, they're having incredible seasons too, and he's kind of getting overlooked. But Baker Mayfield will beat the Washington Commanders, no doubt. I have Tampa. Mon, what do you think?
It's gonna be a tough one. I want Tampa to win. I really do. But is the game in Tampa?
Yes, they won their division.
Yeah, Tampa's gonna win. That's right.
Yeah,
Tampa's winning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
Tampa wins.
Yeah, I do too. I agree 100%.
Packers. We got Packers Eagles.
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm going with the Eagles on that one. I think the Eagles have the best running back in the NFL in Saquon Barkley. I think he is the best. And I'll be honest with you. I think there's a drop off after Saquon Barkley. I'm going with Saquon and the Eagles. Listen, Jalen Hurts has not played great this year, but that Eagles team is very talented. Green Bay is all banged up. I like the Eagles, and probably by a couple scores in this one, Mon. What do you think?
Yeah, my heart wants the Packers to win. I really like them. There's something about the Packers. I really like Jordan Love. I think he's a great quarterback, but I think the Eagles are the best team. I think they're going to be Super Bowl champions. I think they're going to face the Broncos in the Super Bowl, and I think the Eagles win.
I don't think they're better than the Lions. They might have the best. They have the running back's the best, but Jalen Hurts is still in concussion protocol. They do pretty much think he's going to clear, but they had to go with Kenny Pickett, and Kenny Pickett got injured, and then the quarterback behind him got injured. Jalen Hurts is just one bad tush push away from another concussion. I'm not counting Green Bay out
I hear you.
With the exception of they played their starters last week. Jordan Love got hurt, and I think Christian Watkins got hurt. So Watson, playing in the last game of the
Watson tore his ACL, I believe.
Yeah,
he did. But Eric, think about the Eagles. The Eagles control the line of scrimmage on both sides. Their trenches are just elite, and they can take over a game strictly with those guys. But I've been reflecting about that magical run by us 3 years ago. The Broncos remind me of that. I think the Broncos are a team that could get hot, sneak up on people, and the next thing you know, they're in the AFC Championship game. Nobody's giving them a shot, and they sneak into the Super Bowl. Peyton is a hell of a coach. Surtain is a hell of a cornerback. They got good players. That defensive line, the Bengals' offensive line was overpowered all year. They were pummeled against Denver. Denver had they had 6 sacks against us, did they not?
They did.
Maybe 7.
They did. 6 or 7, I think.
Yeah, they led the NFL in sacks.
I'm with you, Mon. I think it's Lions and Broncos. I think the Lions and the Broncos are playing in the Super Bowl. And I listen, this Lions team to me is just playing out of their minds. I mean, 15 guys on IR, the defense, they're playing like third stringers on defense. This Lions team, I think they're destined to win this thing. I think the Lions are going to win the Super Bowl. I really do believe that. I think it's going to be the 1 seed from the NFC versus the 7 seed from the AFC, and I think the Lions win.
That'd be a great story. They that coach and that coaching staff has done a great job. 2 of his coaches. He's going to lose 2 guys to head coaching jobs. Aaron Glenn and Ben Johnson are going to be head coaches next year. Think about this. Everybody made fun of that coach when they hired him.
Yeah,
they made fun of his comments, and he already has a coaching tree.
They did.
He has 2 guys who are going to be head coaches, and
you were right. They did make fun of him. Aaron Glenn has 5 head coaching interviews. He would have had 6, but he turned down the Patriots. He turned down the New England Patriots. So he is not interviewing with them. He's interviewing with the other 5 head coaching jobs. Aaron Glenn. Oh man, see, to me, I would love to have Aaron Glenn. I love the guy. I loved him as a player, and I think he's a hell of a coach. Man, he's awesome. But I'm with you, Mon.
The Bengals wanted to enter.
What'd you say, Mon?
No, you there? No. Do you remember that the Bengals wanted to interview Aaron Glenn for their defensive coordinator spot when Zach Taylor was first hired, and the Saints said no. They denied that interview request.
Yep, they did. You're right. I forgot about that, but you were right. They did deny him because there's a big hoodoo about them denying that because he was what was he? He was their DB coach or something, wasn't he?
He was.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll wait and see. I mean, it should be a good weekend of football, but we're gonna go ahead and get out of here. I want to catch some of this Orange Bowl. Tomorrow night is Texas, Ohio State tomorrow night. What bowl is that? What is it?
I don't know which. I'm all. Is that the Cotton Bowl? I don't know.
Is it the Cotton Bowl? Does anybody know? Put it in the comments.
It's the Cotton Bowl.
The Cotton Bowl. Okay, so Texas, Ohio State in the Cotton Bowl tomorrow night. Then you got NFL playoffs on Saturday, NFL playoffs on Sunday. Should be a fun weekend of football. But go watch this Penn State Orange Bowl here. Hopefully, Penn State can come out here on top. But guys, that's once again another edition of the Bengals Pulse. As always, guys, if you like this podcast, make sure you like, share, and subscribe to this podcast. Make sure you check us out on all the awesome podcast platforms, Apple, Stitcher, Spotify. As always, if you like this podcast, make sure you give us that 5-star review. We would very much appreciate that. As always, follow Mon on Twitter at @TheFireMon. Follow me on Twitter at Coach Jake Owens9. Follow Eric on Twitter at eFlash with 2 H's 88. Follow the Cincinnati Podcast on Twitter at CincinnatiPod. And as always, follow the Bengals Pulse on Twitter at Bengals_Pulse9. On Instagram, the same without the @Bengals_Pulse9. And as always, guys, check out all the awesome podcasts right here on the Cincinnati Podcast Network. We will be back here next week to hopefully be talking about our new defensive coordinator and maybe some new additions to this coaching staff and do some post-game on all of the playoff games this weekend. He is Eric. He is Mon. I am Jake. This is the Bengals Pulse. Hoo day, Bengal fans. We will see you next week.